we looked into the data and found that over 86% of the women that were on the app had actually expressed an interest in connecting with a mentor. And so we thought, okay, why don't we just focus on that one aspect but make it B2B, because B2C is really hard. We started to reach out to companies that we had built and developed relationships with, both locally and internationally. And we just started to reach out and just say, hey, we're going to, take some of your people, high growth, high potential women. At the time, it was women only. And we'll pair them up with industry experts to help them upskill or just navigate challenges and exploring opportunities. And that is something that is not available for a lot of companies. So yeah, it's gone through iterations. We've always used data to really innovate and come up with offerings that are scalable, that are, where we can democratize access to knowledge and make it a hassle-free experience for people while developing talent.
Welcome. I've got Humaira Ahmed here from Locelle. Is that the correct pronunciation of your company name?
It's Locelle.
Locelle.
But a lot of people get that because it's like French and it reads Locelle in French. So that's okay.
Yeah, great. How did you come up with the name?
That is actually an interesting story. I love being different. I love to stand out. When we were starting the company, it was going to be a networking app for women. And so we just thought, well, women, a lot of times there's like L is for women. So we thought, okay, L could be in the name of the company. And then the app was going to connect women locally using location-based technology. And so that's how we just put the two together. And yeah, I also thought there was this company that's it's a beauty brand, more like skincare. It's L'Occitane or L'Occitane, I forget. But I was like, they have a different unique name. We'll just go with that. So that's how we came up with the idea.
Yeah, naming a business is not easy. So I love it. And I bet you that, did it take minutes or weeks or years? Like, how long did it take you to come up with that?
With the name?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, probably a week.
Good. That's reasonable.
Yeah.
Branded is not easy, but before we dive too deep into your business, this is the Business Vancouver Island Podcast. So I did want to ask, what do you do outside of your business and what do you enjoy doing the most in Victoria or on Vancouver Island?
Yeah, I mean, I love hikes. So lots of hiking. We live in a beautiful neighborhood. There's the Dean Park Trail out in North Saanich. There's Mount Doug, obviously. It's amazing. Elk Lake walk. So anything to do with being outdoors and around trees, it not only just is great for your health, but like mental health and time with family and just taking the kids along too. So that's something that I absolutely love to do. And I like the idea of playing cricket. I was very good at it growing up, and there's a women's cricket team here in Victoria, and I've played with them and looking to kind of get back into it again. So that's something that I also really enjoy. And yeah, just hanging out. I mean, we live in a beautiful part of the world. It feels like vacation every day.
That's amazing. I mean, I love that you've got one of the kind of the traditional outdoor Vancouver Island things, and then also cricket, which is not new to Vancouver Island in Victoria, but I had read recently that the national team was coming here looking for prospects. So did you see them, or were you about to get on the team?
No, I mean, they've been actually calling me, the team here that we have. They've been calling me so much, but with COVID and everything, I took a bit of a backseat there. So I'll be going to play some games, maybe out in Shawnigan Lake and stuff, but I'm not there yet. I think unfortunately, I don't have the time to be committed to that, because it's more of like, you have to be committed and there's like seasons for it and days. And yeah, so I just can't, but one day, who knows?
Yeah, well, that's great. I play soccer every week, and there's right beside us is they're playing every week. So it's something I learned a little bit in junior high, but yeah, love the athleticism of the sport. So that's a great kind of segue. But coming back to your business, I mean, tell me more about it. I was introduced to you by a former podcast guest, and I was like, oh, what does this do? And I love the tech world, and I love HR. I'm not involved in those day to day, but I touch on them all the time. So tell me about your company.
Yeah, we've actually had a few pivots as a lot of other tech companies. But originally, it was the idea to connect women locally with each other. We had 3,000 plus women on the app. This was, again, I founded the company about 5.5 years ago. And so that was the idea, because over 56% of the women in tech quit their jobs mid-career. And that's a big problem because, there's so much talk about diversity and wanting to add more women. But the problem is not even just being able to attract and add the women to the workplace. It's how do you retain them? How do you keep them? And how do you advance them, right? And so, but if the women are leaving mid-career, then you're not going to have that leadership pipeline that we're all looking for. And so that was kind of the pain point that I had felt, and I knew it was just so prevalent. And, to make that happen, or just to be part of the solution, we launched this app just so that women at least had a place to connect with each other, whether they were looking for networking, friendship, or mentorship. And this was, obviously we learned a whole lot as we onboarded a lot of these women, and the reason why we had a networking app too was the number one reason cited by a lot of women who leave the workforce is isolation and not having that representation within the workplace. And so, yeah, that was awesome. But, we didn't make any money. It was like a free app. I bootstrapped the company, and revenues are super important. So COVID had actually hit. And at that point I thought, okay, well, we either, become this like free service forever and I do something else, I find a job, or we try to monetize somehow. Luckily for us, we had a lot of data. And we looked into the data and found that over 86% of the women that were on the app had actually expressed an interest in connecting with a mentor. And so we thought, okay, why don't we just focus on that one aspect but make it B2B? Because B2C is really hard, especially when it comes to, ed tech. And so what we did was we started to reach out to companies that we had built and developed relationships with, both locally and internationally. And we just started to reach out and just say, hey, we're gonna, take some of your people, high growth, high potential women. At the time, it was women only, and we'll pair them up with industry experts to help them upscale. Or just navigate challenges and exploring opportunities, right? And that is something that is not available for a lot of companies, like whether, bigger companies too, like they do have internal mentorship programs, but there's just no easy way to do that externally. And sometimes you don't have that expertise in-house. So where do you go? So we wanted to be that platform where, we do the matchmaking, but also it's a managed service. So there's a marketplace, but there's also a managed service where it's hassle-free. That's what we say to HR. It's hassle-free. We come in, we take your people, we help develop them, and we also give you metrics on how they're growing and what their challenges are and how, you can also participate in being a better workplace. So that's something that we started. And I said to these companies, look, we're going to offer this for free for 1 month. And if they want to continue, then you got to pay. And they were like, okay, sure. So somebody's got to pay, right? So the employers were the ones that were going to pay. So we used to get both mentors and mentees from the companies. Now this is like a few years ago. That was a huge success. We partnered with a lot of companies locally, but also in Vancouver, some in the States, some in Toronto. I mean, it's global, right? And so that was what we were doing. And then just starting like end of last year, we learned a few critical things as, the market changed. We were thinking of how do we expand? One thing we learned was companies were always looking to develop their leaders. Companies that we had partnered with were also looking to provide a similar opportunity to other groups as well, not just women. And so that's what we ended up doing. So we launched this, leadership coaching program for leaders, especially people who have never been through any training. And we have found a huge gap in this market. And so with the data that we have, we know the topics that are super critical for these leaders to learn about and the skills to develop to lead today's remote, diverse workplace. So yeah, it's gone through iterations. We've always used data to really innovate and come up with offerings that are scalable, that are, where we can democratize access to knowledge, and make it a hassle-free experience for people while developing talent.
That's an amazing voyage. I can't even find a place to unpack, what has been the biggest impact, would you say, for your customers or the
Mm.
individual mentees or mentors? What would you say like the one biggest impact has been?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a big question. We've supported over 4,000 women in tech. So I would say like because with the new programs, those are kind of newer. So, it will take some time for us to look at the efficacy and impact. But over the last 5 years, I would say just being able to see people develop into leaders, like being part of the solution and creating that diverse leadership pipeline. I mean, women have had promotions, like big promotions, right? And leadership positions with a lot of confidence. So just adding to that, I think is such a big, I would say, honor for us that we're using, this space to not only actually develop mentees, but also mentors. Our mentors become mentees. Our mentees become mentors. So just seeing that ecosystem of learning and development growing, and actually making a change in the workplaces and culture is just
Yeah.
incredible. That just gets me up in the morning.
Great, great. And I love that, as a third party recruiter, we get to see people throughout their careers, different stages, promotions. I'm always like hitting my
Mhm.
HR directors up, and I see they get a promotion. I'm like, oh, you're going to be VP next. It's great to be able
Mm.
to continue that interaction with them in the different stages of their career, whether they're a specific customer or
Mhm.
not, because you could leave
Yeah,
and come back as a mentor, whether or not you're a customer. So I think it's great.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And where do you see kind of this market growing the most? Like where's the most potential? I mean,
Mhm.
some of your first customers were here on Vancouver Island. Do you have any
Mhm.
main customers here that you see growing? And where do you see it like exploding
Yeah.
in other parts of either Canada, the US, or the world?
Yeah, I think there's such a blue ocean opportunity for us because first of all, our goal is to create equitable workplaces. And we anything we do has to be filtered through that lens of like how would this, even with the new people managers, right? It's all inclusive. It could be men, women, regardless of gender. We will support you. But even with that, just looking at why is that important and how is that going to move the needle for equity in the workplace? Well, it's because if a lot of, say, even like men in tech get promoted, right? Like there's just more men in leadership in tech. But if they learn how to actually lead their teams, their diverse teams effectively, inclusively, but also learn critical leadership skills, we are absolutely going to move the needle faster than it is right now. And so, with our current customers, too, I think one of them that I could share has actually on the island, Starfish Medical. They have been our customer for the last 3 years. We have been able to land and expand. We started with the mentorship for just women, and then we were able to do it for other underrepresented groups as well. And now we're offering it to everybody at their company, which is incredible. But then when we launched this leadership program, they were the first to say, we have some, new emerging leaders that, they have some coaching programs for executives or, people who've been senior leaders for a long time. But they said there's no place where we could just, the ICs who end up becoming managers, like they have no training, they have no idea. But providing them with a coaching opportunity, that's fantastic. And so they were the first, and the trust was there, right? Like they knew we were delivering on people development. And so it was just incredible that they were just like, well, we'll sign up. And as a result of that, we were able to get a few other local companies because I mean, Starfish is such a big company here in the tech space. And so I think just that even the opportunity to develop people in a way that is, I don't want to use the word safe, I don't know what the word is, but in a way where it's external, where they can show up as themselves without a worry about what is my manager going to think if I express XYZ, right? So just again, there's so much power in sharing externally because even, yeah, I mean, people share more openly with strangers than they do with their own people, right? Sometimes depending on the topic. So just being able to create that safe space for people to learn and grow, through this managed marketplace is where we see a lot of opportunity, especially in times like these where companies will always have budget for leaders, period, right? But also in times like today where there's so much economic downturn or uncertainties, like they want to keep the morale high. They want to continue to invest in the people that they have. And for to attract more people. I think there's such an amazing opportunity for us to really focus on developing diverse talent, new people managers who don't have that support internally. And that's been so great. We're actually, I can't name, but like some of the few, we'll be putting out a press release coming up, but we started doing some kind of activity in the States, and we've had an amazing reception there. In some ways, I don't know, like it's faster to close those deals versus Canada. I don't know if it's us or just everybody, but I think there's, again, the same opportunity, right? Because these companies, while they might have budgets, they don't necessarily have that expertise in-house. And if we manage it for them, like, why wouldn't they, right? So I think we have an amazing opportunity here to be the leading people development platform through the talent marketplace, where we have mentors, we have coaches, and then eventually, we could add other services as well. But right now we're really focused on mentorship and coaching for high growth potential people. Working
with a company like Starfish Medical with, multiple locations that remote across multiple time zones, it presents those kind of interesting challenges, and still not, I mean, you're dealing with a very advanced company that's, selling all over the world, but you're also still dealing with local, where you can get that feedback, which I think is so important.
Absolutely. And I think we do work with startups as well. I think obviously with the market right now, it's harder for startups to invest in something like this. But we are seeing, more and more investment coming from them. So our ideal customer profile is usually companies that have 100 employees or more, because, the need is bigger. As a business, we can expand. We will have more people to participate, like even, as if they want to become mentors, right? And so I think there's more opportunity there, but we do work with individuals as well. And startups are supporting some of their high potential, high growth employees as well. So yeah, I think just having that proximity to some of the best tech companies locally in Vancouver, I mean, it's such a gift, just having that direct access to your best customers is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, oh, so neat. And I'm not an expert in the HR tech stack or that, but what would you say, like, the most interesting thing happening in your industry is right now? Beyond your company, like what's kind of really making you excited, not keeping you up at night in a bad way, like really thinking that may drive change or
yeah, that's a great question. I think there's so much power in people now, like people as in individuals, right? Like we've gone from like, you have to do certain type of training, but it's more like, here's your budget, you do what you want to do. I think just people just picking and choosing where they want to develop, being able to work out of anywhere. I think just that flexibility of what I do, how I choose to work, where I choose to work, who I choose to work with. I think that is so exciting. Like so many people are becoming, I think COVID in a way, while it was not great, I think in a way it did democratize equity in certain ways. So I think one thing that really comes to mind is, as a result of, I think, just everybody working remotely, people realized how much pressure women at work had. Like working women, we still were working in the house, doing the household stuff, right? And when, like my partner, as an example, my husband, like when he had to stay home, like that was his toughest year, because now he was working from home. And even though we're lucky, it was hard. He had his own office, even then it was hard, right? So I think just in a way, the landscape has really changed, right? Like people have expectations. It's not just like top down anymore. It's no longer, and especially in the tech space, right? It's no longer about, oh, I need a job, so I need to go and impress people and do like work these long hours. I think the landscape is changing where employers want the best talent, and so they're really willing to give people what they're looking for. And I see the confidence in people, right? So I think I might have shared a lot of thoughts here, but overall theme here I find is just that the power dynamic has shifted. People have more opportunities, more flexibility, and really do the work that they want to do. So there's that. And then there's AI. I mean, do we really want to go there? Right.
No, I don't want to go there today, but like going back to what you're saying about, working remotely and then having choice. I think there's some school of thought, old school thought, listening to the Pivot podcast. So that's Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher. And Scott really points out that, like, if you're remote, it's hard to get promotions, right? So like if you're working from home as a mother or as a father, and you're not able to go into the office because of any number of situations, it may be hard to get promotions, but you've got a solution that kind of wraps around that. So you can still get some of that. Well, you can get formal mentorship if you're losing out on that informal mentorship of, leaning over somebody's desk or meeting somebody at the cooler and going for lunch with.
I mean, I do think that there's so much, it's really important for people to connect with people they work with, right? I think, so coming into work, if that's an option, I always recommend, I think just even getting that visibility is important. I think more than just being in the office, it's about visibility, right? Like, where are you spending that time? How are you spending that time? And if somebody could just even go once a week or even once a month, but their role is actually where they have this presence and they are connecting with the right people, the right stakeholders, and showing who they are. Again, like, people will always promote people they like and believe in and see their talent, right? And so just making yourself visible in whatever way. I don't think being in the office every day is the solution, but having that visibility is key. So I do agree that fully remote has its pros and cons. But if it's fully remote, I would also assume, because there are some companies that I know and we work with, but they're fully remote, right? They do their offsites and everybody comes. I mean, people who can come. And that's a great bonding experience for that visibility. But overall, I think depending on the type of company, if it's hybrid, like, obviously you do have to show up a few times, right? If it's your choice, yes. If you want a promotion, if you want to get ahead, you need to see where the leadership is at. If the leadership is showing up on Monday and Friday, those are your days to go into the office. Maybe pick one day, right? So I think it's visibility and connecting with the right people at the right time. So we always recommend people to be strategic in their planning. And a lot of these things happen like a year before, right? So you need to consistently deliver, have a plan, and connect with, again, your manager, the right people. I think, visibility is super key. And we're fully remote, but we try to connect, whether it's at a conference, everybody flies out there, or, just even team lunches, whatever way visibility you can gain, that's the key piece versus just being in the office and seeing somebody's there. I think leaders are smart. Like, we know, right? Like, who's actually performing and who should be promoted.
Yeah. Good. That's really great. One of our web developer, amazing business owner, he started to do office hours just with his camera on, and he scheduled it, and he's just like, drop in, ask me a question.
Yeah.
And I made a joke. I'm like, I'm going to adapt it. And, I said to my staff, if you catch me picking my nose, just laugh or say something, because don't let this be uncomfortable. I'm going to be here at office hours. You guys can, poke your head in. You don't even have to say anything, but I'm going to be here for those questions. And I mean, we have to be creative, like with, real enterprise solutions, but also, be creative. Just leave your door open if you're that type of manager. And I think every manager should leave their door open. But for those who work remotely, how do you do that? We have to find solutions. So
absolutely. And I think one-on-one time is so important. I actually remembered this one time, I think I was busy with a conference, traveling a lot, and then, was stacked by a vacation. And then when I came back, I just saw like the performance was not the best. And, I chatted with one of our team members, and they shared, right? Like they said, we haven't had the one-on-one time, and it's super, I realized it was super important. And so I was like, okay, you know what? Let's make that happen. If I've canceled that meeting, follow up with me. Let's reschedule that. Right. And I think, and having an agenda. So that's actually something that I've learned with one of my mentors is is to always have that one-on-one every single week, depending on your team size, right? You can't be, if you have a really big team, you can't meet one-on-one with everybody every week, but just have a cadence, a regular cadence, and that you treat that as like, it's not going to be moved unless something critical happens. And then that's your team's time, right? Like it could be 5 minutes long, it could be half an hour, but you block that half an hour where you talk about family, where you talk about work, where you talk about deadlines, like anything, right? But that's your team members' time that they get with you. So I think that's something that we have done and have found a lot of success with.
You touched on there a mentor. So one of my questions I always love to ask guests is, who is a business mentor or just a mentor in the community that you really look up to anywhere on Vancouver Island?
Wow, that's a tough question because there's so many. I mean, maybe I can do one woman, one man, I guess.
Yeah, one or the rule of threes, whatever you want.
Oh my goodness. Now you're stirring the pot a little bit. So I think with the woman mentor, I would say Nicole Smith, a flightographer here locally. She's done an amazing job. I mean, I've always looked up to her before I started the company, to in between, to when their company was going through a hard time, to now then thriving like no other. She is an incredible businesswoman. And I think just even being able to connect with her and share some thoughts and her willing to help out, she's always there, right? So, and it's so hard because I'm sure there's a lot of competition for her time, but she really makes time for people that she believes are doing good work and she can help, right? So she is absolutely amazing. And then in terms of male mentors, there is obviously Scott Phillips of Starfish Medical. I've actually known Scott. Not many people know that. When I first moved to the island in 2011, I was introduced to him by just a common connection, and we stayed in touch. I actually remember he was very helpful, made a lot of intros. And at one point, I applied for this job that I didn't get, but then I kept on reaching out, and he finally was probably like, okay, like, here's a project for you. When I had my own marketing company, I just reached out. It was wonderful. So I think just even having that space, and since then, I've connected with Scott. Like every time I'm kind of challenged with like a big question, he's approachable. So I reach out to him, and he's always made time. So I think, and even with the work that we do together, I think Scott's been kind of not really that involved. Like he passed it on to the people and culture team, and we've been working with them since. But just having that space to have somebody who's been through a lot, had an extraordinarily amazing journey for the last over 21 years now. And so, yeah, I mean, he's very accessible. And then one more is just, I just reach out to Sarah Goldbrenson, who's CEO of Ring Partner, quite a bit here. Just from the tech perspective, and actually I'll do the rule of four. I don't know if that exists, but it does now. I've also actually become really good friends, and she's my kind of mentor in a way. Erin Pinkerton, who is the CEO at BC Transit, her being, the first female CEO of a corporation like BC Transit was just incredible. So her and I connect a lot about what is it like to be the only woman in like a room of like over 50 plus men. Yeah, so I do have very, very lucky that I have all these people that I can kind of always lean on.
Well, that's great. I won't touch on all of those relationships, but
sure.
Scott is amazing, but the amount of time he gives to people in the community. But it was also your persistence in just keeping in touch with him for when a project came up, because some entrepreneurs are like, oh, I've got to make a sale right away. Right. And it's really about relationships and just staying in touch with people. And it may be that you've never sold anything I've never sold anything to Scott, but I know he'd refer us on it to somebody else if he thought they needed our services. So I mean, that's a great thing about Vancouver Island. There are so many entrepreneurs, and it's not like a big city where people are like, don't waste my time, right? It's amazing the time that many entrepreneurs give to each other.
Absolutely. I think people do want to help. And one thing I had learned very early on here, somebody had shared this with me, was this is a small town, like, or small enough place that if you do good work, people will know. If you do bad work, people will know. And that just stayed with me. I was literally horrified the first little bit, Kale, because I was like, what if I do a bad job? But anyway, I think it's true, and people do want to help, but you have to be really intentional. You cannot waste people's time. You can't just be like, oh, let's go for a coffee. And people do that still, even with me, and I just go like, well, why? Like, I have so much to do. I have kids, I have family, I have work, I have my team. Like, I need to know if it's going to be worth it, right? And so I think people need to be intentional and with persistence. I think people do genuinely want to help.
No, I mean, you got at the very least know exactly what coffee to buy somebody.
Totally.
One of the ways that another recruiter got their foot in the door is they found out somebody was a runner. So many entrepreneurs are different types of athletes, right? You can find this sort of thing out from a podcast or actually calling up and finding an executive assistant. She found out this business owner was a runner and his shoe size. She sent him a size 11 shoe and said, I want to get a foot in the door. Can I meet with you?
Wow, that's super creative. I would totally hire this person.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, so a very good point. Don't waste people's time, but do the research, right?
Yeah.
And say, hey, I see you're into this, something maybe outside of their business, or I just saw that you won this award. I'd be really interested in learning more about that, or I've been doing research in this. I'd love to see how it translates, right? Like, because everybody's interested as a CEO how AI will affect their business, but do we have 4 hours, 6 hours to dive into that, right? And if somebody could bring that to you and say, hey, I'm looking at this and I'd love to know how it ties in with learning and development, you'd be like, yeah, let's go 15 minutes. Let's go for a coffee down at Starbucks. Like you're going to make that time for people. And maybe something for people kind of doing business on Vancouver Island. What would be one of the things you would have wanted to know before starting your business? Like, it doesn't have to be specific to place, but what is something you wish you had known before you started your business that you know now?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would absolutely take more advantage of is, again, that kind of not framework, but just knowing that if you do a good job, people will know. If you do a bad job, people will know. But I think also, if you're one of the few ones in whatever area or way, like if you're the only female or the only even male in some of our spaces, right? Or if you're an immigrant or whatever it is that you think might be a barrier, actually use that as an opportunity, because there's lack of diversity on Vancouver Island when it comes to race, especially and background, ethnicity, when it comes to the tech industry, especially. And I actually have started to see like how I used to be the woman that would be invited to all these panels because, maybe my skin color is not that brown, but I am an immigrant from Pakistan, right? And so I am a mother of two. I do lead a tech company. So I had a lot of those diversity tick boxes boxes to check, but I kept showing up, even though sometimes I was like, well, if I'm only being invited because it's tokenism, I'll show up. I'll make the most of it. So I would say, because, visibility, right? Like even here, I think visibility is super key. If you're invited, you go. If somebody asks you, you show up. And I always say, like, show up for yourself, do really good work, and people will start to notice that, right? I think in this town, I think you do have to earn people's trust, but with consistency, with persistence, with like showing up, I think you can do that. So that's something that I would just say, like, it can be easy to stand out here and just do that. Even if I remember my first actually job here, because there were no marketing jobs on the island in 2011 when I moved, but I was determined. I just thought, this is the only thing I'm going to do, even if it's pro bono. Now I had experience, but I was like, I don't care. I'm going to go because I need to work in this. And I remember just doing a few months project management thing at Biotech, which is a tech association. Yep. That opened up so many doors. I had the competing job offers. Again, I made myself more visible. So yes, it can be harder if you're a new person to the island, but I think you can make it easier for you by just showing up and just kind of leave that fear at the door. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity as a result of that. And not a lot of, I've personally not noticed as many people putting themselves out there as much as they can. So if you are somebody that does that, go to every event, right? Like meet everybody that somebody's introducing you to, ask for referrals, and you can be really successful here because people want to help. They really want to help.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. That volunteer, I think there's a difference between volunteering for a for-profit company and a nonprofit organization. And especially one that's so well connected, right? And there's
absolutely
there's so many organizations here. Some for specific for the immigrant communities, some for tech, some for marine construction. Like there is a long list, and they need help. Like they're all strapped for resources and expertise. And a fellow I met recently, he's got an MBA, some great national experience in Mexico, has moved his family here, and I'm like, get out there and network, find a nonprofit or a charity that hopefully one of the bigger ones, because you can get worked to death and not get as much exposure. But if you can if you can choose ones that are well immersed in the community, it's a chance for you to get out there, right? And I've been on boards of Dragon Boat and Search and Rescue, and it's hard.
Wow.
Don't like the work you've done. While you're either finishing your school or you've got kids, it's hard to do that volunteer work, but it's getting out there. And I know we've got some people on the live stream who are recent Ukrainian refugees. And I'd encourage you, if you don't know where to go, ask me. We're connected on LinkedIn. Ask anybody, hey, I'm new. I'm looking for knowledge and experience in these areas. And, at the very least, we can refer you on. And at the best, if you're doing research on something, we can give you our time, right?
Yeah, and you touched on that, Kayla. I think this is the one thing that I would have done more of. Just be vulnerable and just go out there, share with people. Here, this is who you are. This is what you're looking for, and consistently do that. I do think that if I had done more of that versus, oh my gosh, like I don't know what people are gonna think. What is she doing? Like, why is she always there? I think again, like the more visible you can make yourself, if anything. I mean, there's also don't be a pushover. If that's a word, but just really be intentional with time, but definitely put yourself out there as much as you can. I really wish I had done that, especially with people that could have helped me. I think sometimes we can also waste time in going to the wrong places, talking to the wrong people. So identify, make some time, and just really be focused with your outreach as well.
Would you consider it the South Asian community that you're a part of?
That's exactly, yeah.
So is there a South Asian business community, any association or sports association that you can give a shout out to? Or
unfortunately, no. I mean, that's the one thing that I think that there's just not as many people, and it's so hard. Like, I don't know how many immigrants will listen to this podcast, but I think when you move here from a different country, especially as an adult, I was 20 when I moved to Canada. So, when you move here, you are looking for that cultural connection, but it's really hard to find, especially on Vancouver Island. But I think you just also change so much when you live here that you're looking for that specific type of connection, right? It's not like anybody that's from Pakistan I'm going to be friends with. Unfortunately, that's not the case because they could be very different cultural backgrounds as well. So I think it's okay. I mean, we enjoy what we can here, and then that's where we do the travel for and go to events in Vancouver or Toronto, but not really. But I would say, depending on your industry, for me, biotech was the place at the time. And now obviously with Locelle, we've built our own community. So mostly for women in tech and underrepresented people in tech. So there are communities, but you just have to, find the one that works for you.
Well, it's interesting because there's actually, I believe, a great history of, South Asian entrepreneurs. Herb Doman started a company. I don't know, I think it was Dolman Industries, but then it changed into Western Forest and, had dozens of mills and is still existing today, Western Forest. And I'm sure if we kind of dig deeper, there's going to be dozens of entrepreneurs currently slugging it out in the trenches and killing it, internationally and locally as well. So it's
true.
I hope we'll see more of those communities kind of built, right? Especially when we're looking at, and one of the reasons for this podcast is not to be Victoria centric. I was born in Courtenay Comox, and I've been fortunate to have customers all the way up and down the island. And if we can, find those other entrepreneurs, pull them in and do more business here. We always love to get clients off the island because it drives most of our revenue. But if we can bring 2 to 3 more clients or colleagues, or, just build that network, I think it's going to, help.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Where can listeners find you? And then one last question about another Vancouver Island business you would recommend to our audience, and why. And it doesn't have to be in any specific category. It can be B2C or B2B.
Yeah, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the best place. I'm pretty responsive there as well. So that's key. Everywhere else, I don't use much of the social media platforms. And then in terms of, I would say flightographer, if you haven't already, Nicole Smith. I think, again, not saying this because she has been kind of my informal mentor per se, but also I think she's an incredible businesswoman. She's built this business from here. It's a global business. It needs no introduction to people who are, especially in the tech space or kind of even the consumer space. And so, yeah, I think they have done an amazing job, or she has primarily done an incredible job of starting it from scratch and building it to this level, kind of navigating the COVID period in the tourism sector. It was hard, but wow, they have done an incredible job. They just celebrated 10 years. So congratulations to them. I think they are absolutely amazing. I would love to hear the story and how they did it.
Yeah. No, that sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your sharing and your vulnerability and walking us through both the company and yourself as well, right? Because it's really the whole person. We want to bring to our audience, and the business as well, right? It's
thank you.
What pays the bills for us. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Kale. It's a pleasure.
Okay, thank you.